for tonight. Pop right in. We got Liza coming in. Awesome. Go ahead and move these away. Welcome everyone tonight. We're so excited to have you. So we're going to go ahead and just give a couple more minutes for people coming in tonight. But I do want to let you know that we will be utilizing the chat feature. I will be monitoring that tonight for Esther. So pose any comments or questions to me or to the whole group, and I will handle those and get those to Esther as she has a break in her presentation tonight. We will also be recording this webinar tonight, so you should be seeing it in just a few days. Feel free to share that again and rewatch it. I always enjoy rewatching them. I gain new knowledge each time. We do have closed captioning tonight for any of you that need that, or if you have colleagues that you want to share it with that need that feature, we are utilizing that tonight.
I'm going to summon the hubby to make me some coffee.
Now we got Sarah coming in.
They're coming.
Yes. Better. Right on time. Right on time. Let's see if we get, hopefully, there. Okay, we got Nancy. Awesome.
Awesome.
Oh, wow. Hopping in. I love it. So we're going to go ahead and just get started. It's like the popcorn. You wait till it slows down just a little bit before you start, before you stop it.
And it should be a party tonight, you guys, because my kids are upstairs and who knows what could happen.
Dad's got it. He's got that.
You just said the word, Dad's got it. It's never as good as when Mom has it.
Right. Okay. Welcome, everyone. We're so glad that you're joining us tonight. We are going to be recording this webinar for those of you who just joined us. Also, we'll be utilizing the chat feature in Zoom. If you don't know where that is, feel free to raise your hand and I'll be happy to. I feel like most of us are probably fairly Zoom savvy at this point, but if not, I'll be happy to share that with you. I'm going to monitor the chat for Esther tonight so she can concentrate on her presentation. But I think this is going to be a really good conversation tonight. All right, so I think we'll go ahead and get started. Again, welcome everyone. Let's begin our webinar tonight, discussing controversial topics with young students, fostering skills to comprehend current events. We are so glad to have you guys here tonight, and I am excited to introduce Esther. She is the founder of Child's Heart Ministries, which is dedicated to training church leaders and children's ministry workers on best practices when it comes to maintaining a healthy children's ministry department. She does this by using digital media to create a network of men and women committed to reaching the generation for Christ. Esther leads virtual training for children's ministry departments all over the country. We're excited to have her with us tonight, and also hosts monthly live webinars dedicated to training and equipping children's ministry workers from all over the world. So Esther, I'm going to go ahead and turn the webinar over to you tonight.
Awesome. My coffee's not here yet, but I think it's on the way.
Plug.
I'm so excited to be here. When I got the invitation from Pam, I was just so honored. I'm definitely passionate about this issue for many reasons. It can be difficult to talk to kids about controversial issues, but you know, as we are having a discussion tonight, I want you to get what you came to get this evening, this afternoon, whatever time zone that you're on. So please feel free, if something is on your heart, if there's an issue or a controversial topic that you're struggling with discussing, please don't sit on it. Just go ahead and talk about it in the chat box, and we'll get to those towards the end. But this topic is so very, very important. And I see that you guys are coming in. Welcome, welcome. I see Melissa is admitting. People, so happy and honored to be here. But let's just dive into this topic. As Melissa said, I am very much involved in children's ministry, and in the crazy season, right? This season hasn't been crazy. Nothing's been going on, right? Of course it has. Not only have we lived through a pandemic, for many of us, for the first time ever, let's just smash and just drop racial unrest and every other crazy thing that we can think of on top of that. And where does that leave our children? What are our children talking about? This is why this is so important, this topic. So this first slide here is actually a picture of my baby, my son. I actually have a 9-year-old and I have a 7-year-old. This picture is when he was 6. Talk about controversial topics. Every Martin Luther King Day, we try to go somewhere and travel and really educate our kids. And let me tell you, this picture captured to me how important it is to be able to talk to kids in age appropriate ways. Having a Black son and him seeing that and wanting us to explain that image to him really just took us aback. But I remember when he saw this image, the first thing that he said was, he said, "Look, Mommy, there's Jesus," because he saw the cross, you know, and we kind of had to sit and talk to him about, you know, what it meant. And, you know, my husband and I are juggling for the first time of how are we going to navigate this? And this is why we are here today, because the truth is it can be really, really hard for us to do that, but it is so important that we are engaging with our children on controversial topics, because at the end of the day, they're learning about these things, whether we choose to talk about it or not. We can try to hide and scoot it up under the rug, but they are going to learn it from other places. So this is the fun thing about this Zoom platform. Yeah, I get to move you guys to the bottom of my screen. So exciting. You guys are covering up my slides. I'm going to move you to the bottom. Okay. Now listen, when we choose, okay, because I know it's hard, I know it can be difficult, but when we choose to not teach children about current events and controversial topics, okay, I want you to know that they are going to pick up attitudes anyway. They are going to pick up assumptions anyway. They are going to listen to their parents or whatever's going on in their home, whatever stereotypes, whatever is happening around them, whatever is in their cultural landscape and their surroundings. I am telling you that they are going to pick it up and they are going to learn on their own. This is why it's so important that mentors and educators and leaders are not sweeping this stuff up under the rug, but talking about these super important topics, because our kids are listening and they are watching. You know, when a lot of things were going on with a lot of the racial unrest that was happening just in this current climate and in this season, I can remember we kind of made the decision in our home to just kind of be, you know, hey, let's try to be a little quiet about it while we try to figure out, you know, how to navigate this, you know. So we really kept the news stations off. We try to do everything that we can to prevent our kids from hearing or seeing any inappropriate images. But guess what? They were listening anyway. They were coming home. They were asking about Black Lives Matter. They were asking about the presidential debates and things like that. So I want you to know that our kids are listening, even if you think that you are being quiet. They can hear us. So this evening, just briefly, I really wanted us to dig into some steps to develop healthy conversations because we can't sit on it, right? We have to talk about these things. So let's get ready to dive into this. So I really think that this is separated into three important things that we have got to do if we are going to be able to talk to our kids about these uncomfortable, controversial topics. And the first thing that we need to do is our homework, right? When we were in school, we had to do our homework. My kids, they cringe. They hate doing homework, but we have got to do our homework. Many of us, and this is the truth, we have opinions. We have so many opinions. A lot of us this evening, we have opinions of things that have happened in this season, of ways we should feel, or avenues that we should go, or how we should even teach our children. But I want you to know today that limited facts to support your opinions can hinder children receiving information in the right way that they should receive it, okay? So before we open our mouths, and I know I struggle too, I like to open up my mouth, okay, I can have a big mouth sometimes, we have to make sure that we are informed as to what we are saying, okay? Discussion on any topic must first be rooted in a reason, research, and solid foundation. This is especially important, you guys, for the next generation. Why? Because they think they don't need us. They do need us. They need mentors. They need educators. They need us so much. But now they have Google. We are living in a different day and age with digital natives. If they want to get an answer, even though it may not be the right answer, they're going to Google it. So this is why it's so important that we are researched and that we are not just coming from the book of opinions. Do your homework. The second thing that we need to do, which is especially important, is we have to be age appropriate. Here's the zinger. What does that mean to be age appropriate? Because if we have a preschooler and we have a preteen, those are two totally different age groups. How do we reach all of them? All right. How do we talk to all of them about controversial topics? Well, I believe that needs to be split. We have to separate it. Well, you can talk to about your 15-year-old, you may not be able to talk to in the same way with a 6-year-old or a 7-year-old. All right. So I want you to know this evening, in general, it's best to share basic information with children, especially with younger children. If we are dealing with preschool age, kindergarten, first grade, second grade, I'm going to throw them in there. Listen, be very basic in the information you share. Do not share graphic details or images that could be scary for them, especially when we're dealing with tragic circumstances. A lot of times, and we're going to talk about that. We're going to dig deeper into that as we move into this webinar this evening. And I want us to really take a situation and really examine it for us to get some practice this evening. So if you're like, okay, that's great, but how, Esther, how will I do that? I'm going to show you exactly how to do that, okay? Children and adults alike, they want to be able to understand enough so they know what's going on. So we need to know what's going on, but we have to be careful when we're dealing with younger children, okay? Graphic information and images should always be avoided, especially when you're dealing with those little ones, okay? The reality is, you guys, that even children as young as 4 years old, they will hear about a major crisis event. This is why we have to talk about this. But I want you to know, it's best that they hear it from a parent or a caregiver. So making sure that we do what we can to partner with parents. If you're an educator this evening, what are you doing to partner with parents? We have to make sure that we're constantly working with parents, especially when it comes to sensitive and delicate topics. Even the youngest child needs accurate information. So we have to be constantly working with parents and making sure that we're educating ourselves without being too vague, okay? So we want to be careful, but we don't want to be too vague to where they don't understand. So simply saying something, you guys, like, okay, this happened in a faraway town and some people got hurt. Children may not understand that. They may take that and turn it into something it's not, okay? The child may not understand why this is so different from people getting hurt every day and why so much is being said about it. So we don't want to be too vague, but we want to give them just enough information, especially when we're dealing with those little tykes that we want to protect, okay? All right, let's talk about those elementary age students and those teens. Now, they're a little bit more mature, but we still need to make sure that we are being age appropriate, okay? So after asking your child, what they've heard, especially with teens and elementary age students, because a lot of them are already hearing at school things that are going on from shootings, community bombings, natural disasters. All right. We're going to talk about a situation that just occurred recently in a second. All right. So a teacher can say something such as, yes, in the city or in the state. And here you might need to give some context depending on whether it's nearby or far away, for example. And, one of the, when I say partnering with parents, I cannot stress how important that is when it comes to talking to young students about controversial topics. We want to make sure that we are on the same page. We want to be open and have that open communication. Hey, we are going to talk about this today. We're just going to share these issues. We're going to allow the children to talk about this and how they felt about this. So making sure that you're partnering with them is super important, and inviting the parents to follow up as needed based on the child's reactions and the questions that they may have. Now, something that I think is left out a lot, which I am like, no way, Jose. There are a lot of developmental delays and disabilities that are out there, but we still need to be talking to our children, even if this is something that they may struggle with. So when it comes to being age appropriate, and reaching a child at the level that they are, maybe we're telling a story, maybe we're being, we have to not be too vague, but say something in a way where we're not sharing graphic images, where we're not talking about exactly what happened right here. Listen, those who have a child with a developmental delay or disability should gear their responses to their child's developmental level or abilities rather than their physical age, okay? So if you have a teenage child, and maybe their level of intellectual functioning is more similar to a 7-year-old, for instance, gear your response toward that developmental level, okay? So maybe in that instance, you start by giving a little less information, all right? Provide details or information in the most appropriate and clear way that you can. Remember, don't be too vague, okay? And step 3, before we really jump into our experiment, you guys, execute effectively. All right. So we've done our homework on what the issue is. We've examined how we're going to attack this in an age appropriate way. Now we need to come up with what is the effective strategy to address the problem in our environment. So now we are going to get into this. And this is where I want you to get involved. I want to invite you all, and we are going to handle this and talk about this topic in particular together. And I want to bring you guys back because I want to see our chat box. I'm trying to get our chat box up, but you can see that, right, Melissa? You can see it. All right. So controversial topic, George Floyd. This is a big one. So, all right, step 1, you guys, we are going to do our homework. All right. We need to study the story of George Floyd. In this instance, this is a situation where we have to open up those books. Oh, yay, my chat box came back, you guys. I'm so excited. All right. I like to engage. I like to see you all. Okay. All right. So in this instance, we are going to study the story of George Floyd. We're going to research and we are going to pull from reliable sources. What in the world is a reliable source in this day and age? But there are reliable sources because we want to gain a solid understanding of the issues surrounding the event. And a lot of the times what I like to do, and I know that there are a lot of, do I watch CNN? Do I do Fox News? What do I do? I like to watch both because I want to be as educated as I can be on everything that's happening, all perspectives. I want to learn as much as I can. And we don't want to stop there, okay? Then we want to try to gain an understanding on other related topics. What's a topic that came out of George Floyd? Police brutality. What can we do to try to understand that issue a little more? Systemic racism was a topic that came out of this. What can we do to further our education to learn about those things more? I want you to know this evening that leaders are readers. So we need to make sure that we're doing everything that we can, that we are as educated as possible. Because if we come and we talk to our kids, if we're educators and we come and we talk to our students and we are not educated on a topic and we talk from the book of opinions, it will catch up to us. Trust me. So you want to make sure you are doing your homework. So as we are kind of navigating on things that we can do in the chat box, I want you to think of a controversial topic that you have struggled with. I want you to write something that you've struggled with talking to students about. And I think it'd be really fun if we talk about how to do our homework. We go through the steps as I'm continuing to go through this step. It could be anything that's completely uncomfortable for you to talk about. Second, you guys, we have to be age appropriate. The George Floyd situation. How can we be age appropriate? Well, let me tell you something. For our kids, I have a 9-year-old and a 7-year-old. And I got this amazing book. I found this amazing resource called Something Happened in Our Town. Okay. And this entire story is about a child's story about racial injustice. Who knew it? Completely age appropriate. It completely did all of the uncomfortable homework for me when I got this book, and I got my children together and I got my husband and we cuddled together and we sat on the couch and we read this story. And it is a beautiful story about two kids from two different walks of life. And guess what? Something just like the George Floyd situation happened in their town. So basically, towards the end of the story, these two very different kids, different skin tone from two different walks of life, come together to defend a little boy who comes to their school, who looks different, who acts a little different, and they all come together and just really just support each other and celebrate each other's differences. I love this book. Not only was it age appropriate, you guys, but it also gave us a dictionary at the end with words and that are kind of, dicey. What does stereotype mean? What does racial injustice mean? And it allowed us to talk about it. It allowed us, whether you're a parent or an educator, to address students and kids in ways that are age appropriate. This is what I'm talking about when I say age appropriate. What resources are out there that can assist us? Sometimes it doesn't have to be all on us. We can use these amazing resources to help us to reach our kids right where they are. And step 3, how can we execute effectively when it comes to the George Floyd situation? When it comes to, in this instance, systemic racism. All right. So I want to give you a couple of things that we can do, whatever uncomfortable situation, controversial topic that is going on. So in this situation, redecorate. Okay. Maybe that means that we have to examine our classrooms to discover any items that promote racial or cultural stereotypes. Okay. Do some of the pictures show children of only one race? Is it a predominantly one culture, on a poster? Replace these with pictures of children of all colors. You want a little bit of everybody, okay? Use multiracial dolls or only play animals in your preschool if you're dealing with younger children. Number two, we could examine our literature. What literature do we have available for our students? Yeah, I'm in children's ministry, and a lot of things in children's ministry can be predominantly one race, and that's definitely something that we are working on right now. If your curriculum's art doesn't represent children of all colors, adapt it, and I am a firm believer in talking to publishers. I will call a publisher in a minute. If this segregated approach extends into the content, consider getting rid of it. Ask questions, when examining the curriculum that you're using. Are the characters' names diverse? Melissa talked about some diverse names that she has in her classroom this year. Are heroes, in the modern day stories, are they diverse? Are there examples from everyday life from more than one culture? Okay. Another thing we need to do, number three, don't ignore racial differences. I think in this season, we really had to come together and embrace one another like never before. If children ask why a child's skin is a different color, say something like, Natasha's skin is white because her mom and dad have white skin. With older children, you can explain that the amount of melanin, the substance in the skin that accounts for color, determines the darkness of people's skin. Once again, that is going to require that we do our homework. Okay. I love Louise Sparks. She's the author of Anti-Bias Curriculum, Tools for Empowering Young Children. If you don't know about it, look into that today. She says, we can't ignore kids' questions because kids make up their own theories, many of which are incorrect and can lead to prejudice. So we need to make sure that we do not ignore racial differences when we're talking to students, okay? How can we celebrate those differences? What are we doing every month to celebrate those differences, okay? Another thing that we could do in regards to this situation, to attack some issues that may come up, break down stereotypes. Okay, a personal encounter with people of other races is the best way to break down stereotypes. Get kids working together in multiracial teams. If you see kids, if you see a beautiful Black boy and a beautiful white girl over here and a beautiful Asian boy over there, put them together in multiracial teams. Let them work together. Invite special guest speakers of all races into your classroom. This is how we break down stereotypes. All right. I'm trying to move on to the next one. The whole point is, you guys, kids are talking, all right? They are discussing politics, whether we're talking about it or not. They're discussing sex. Oh, we don't want them to talk about that. Don't talk about that. But they are. When schools and churches, whatever you are, when we are quiet about these issues, it doesn't stop the discussion when it comes to kids. Educators must serve as guides and role models, all right? By doing their homework, okay? We have to do our homework. We have to engage with children on the current and controversial issues in age-appropriate ways. And we have to come up with an effective strategy to execute that promotes health and proper understanding and nurture and growth in the student that leads to truth and wholeness and not prejudice. So you guys, you guys are quiet. I'm looking in this chat box, Melissa, they are quiet. I want to hear about some things. I want you to write in something that is uncomfortable for you to talk about. I'm going to bring you guys back because I can't see you.
I think they were listening so intently to you and you didn't want to miss anything. Now they can
Yeah,
type.
now we're gonna chit chat. Now we're gonna talk and chit chat about some things that are controversial to us. You know, maybe there's nothing that's controversial to you this evening. I don't believe that for a minute.
So Nancy Baker said death of a family member.
Mm, absolutely, absolutely. That was definitely. Oh, I see them. They're coming in. That's a good one, Shane. I see that. Death of a family member. That was definitely something in children's ministry initially coming in that I struggled with. You know, that was I had to really ask God to cultivate a heart in me, because you don't want to say the wrong things when there is a death of a family member. But part of doing our homework is going to workshops, when it comes reading books, when it comes to grief, how to deal. One of my favorite books that I have is on my bookshelf now. It's a book about grief and children. Do you understand the dynamics of how to reach children and how to really let children go through the grieving process? And that was definitely something that I had to learn. I see racism in general, of course. This is a big one. Transgender and homosexuality. How do we deal with those uncomfortable topics? Because really, let's be real. As educators, we are to celebrate, and I'll be honest with you, and Pam knows, this is definitely a controversial topic for me as a children's pastor, in the church, when it comes to that issue. And we actually had, I will tell you, one of the most uncomfortable issues that occurred in a church setting that was actually in our church a couple of years ago. We had a child who came in. She was a girl and she identified as a boy. And at the point that she comes into our setting, her parents, they are completely in agreement with what her truth is as a boy. So we had to of course the situation came up of I need to use the boys restroom. I identify as a boy, so I need to go to the boys restroom. So we really had to come together. This one is really important, and I'll tell you from my experience in the church, we had to come together as a staff to really figure out how we could support and protect this child, because they matter and they're important, while still standing on our truths as a church. And I think it's so important that we are talking about these controversial topics in a setting with other leaders, and that we are coming up with what the plan is. We need to be on a united front. Whatever your plan is, we need to make sure that we are on a united front so that there's no confusion. Because how many of you know when we all have different opinions and nobody's talking, about their opinions, then all chaos and confusion can break out. This is why it's so important that we are having those closed meetings and those discussions as leaders, so that we can make sure we're on the same page, so that we can come up with a plan. This is the plan in case of this situation, and this is how it is to be handled, so that you don't have to guess, because it's no fun guessing in uncomfortable controversial topics. Christy. All right. Christy says, as a gay teacher, I lived in a closet for much of my career. I've had to learn how to share life in a way that is matter of fact. It can be a challenge because internalized homophobia learned in those early years. Christy, I love it. I love it that you are sharing that. This is why I love the chat box, because we can come together, because we can share our experiences. And Christy, I know that you're going to be able from the seat that you're sitting in, you're going to be able to help a child. You being open about your voice, you're going to be able to come alongside a group of leaders who may not understand, your life and the way that you live. This was something that I dealt with in this season, and you're going to be able to help and to educate. This is why it's so important that we come together on matters like this. Melissa, I think I'm taking over your job. Am I taking over your job?
No, this is perfect. You're doing great. We've got so much coming in. I like that you're addressing them.
I did. Christy, I love that you shared that and that you were so open about that. Michael, we had a situation in our school where our GSA advocates wanted to promote their group with posting flyers, but did not like the flyers posted by our faith group. It is dicey. It can get really dicey when we are dealing with faith groups and when we are dealing in education. Now, I represent a faith group, right? That's what I do. So definitely can speak from my experience, but there are rules and guidelines that we have to follow when it comes to situations like that. Let me see. We see sexism is one, gun rights is one, political climate, immigration, police brutality. I love all of these, you guys. So let's pick one of these. Melissa, do we have time to pick one of these?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So let's pick one of these. Let's pick immigration. I think that this is a good one. Let's pick and let's talk about doing our homework. Okay. When it comes to that topic. And the reason I'm picking that topic, one of the students, we get an opportunity to work with a lot of students, and my husband, he got to go to a Hispanic high school and work with students. And then in the season, that was a issue, a huge issue. There was a lot of sadness and a lot of fear that was going on. So let's talk about immigration. How can we do our homework? Let's just write. I want us to engage together. How can we do our homework? What can we learn when it comes to immigration? Where can we go? Where can we go? Let's talk about where we can go to get accurate information. We're all in this together. I'm going to start typing. I want you to engage.
So we have credible news sources, current policies of our country, government websites.
Absolutely. That's where we can, even volunteering, and walking alongside and doing life with people who don't look like you, who may be affected by this issue. That's also definitely something that we can do. Christy, procon.org is another place that you can go to learn about these. Okay. I go to allsides.com to help remind me of media bias. BBC News. I love it, you guys. We are sitting here and we are doing our homework because we want to be educated on this topic. Okay, let's talk about how to engage with the children in age-appropriate ways. How can we engage with our kids in age-appropriate ways? You guys tell me. What would you do? Okay, I'm going to throw one out there. I'm going to say for a fourth grader, I'm going to throw a curveball at you. How can we engage with a fourth grader in an age-appropriate way on this issue?
Sarah says read stories.
Yes, absolutely. Sarah, that's my favorite thing to do. It's easy. It takes the pressure off of us to be able to read a story.
Christy has a great one also. Begin by asking what questions the students have.
I love that one. What are the questions that the kids have? We have in Chicago, we actually have two godchildren who are dreamers. they're dreamers. And it was so crazy. It wasn't until we did life with them that we were able to really gain an understanding. I remember when she was in 6th grade, her name was Metzley. And I remember she came to my doorstep and she was just in tears, and she was just so worried and concerned about her future, and I'm like, man, you shouldn't be doing this in 5th and 6th grade. You should be having fun. You should be, doing this. But had I not done life with someone who didn't look like me or even think like me, I would have never known those sensitive issues and pressure points, that was going on with her and her family. I love it, Kimberly. Kimberly says, change curriculum from study of Revolutionary War to immigration-related texts for historical fiction. Love it, Kimberly. I love this. All right, let's talk about executing an effective strategy now. So we've done our homework. We've gone to BBC News. We've read, we're doing everything that we can. We're going to all procon.org. All right. Okay. We're getting information on current policies in our country and going to all of these websites. We're reading books. We've done our homework. We are ready to talk to these kids about these issues, but now we need to do it, in age appropriate ways. Okay. We're relying on books. We are going to everything that we can. We are going into our classrooms, making sure that they're set in a way that celebrates everyone. We are doing everything that we can. Now, what is the strategy? What is the strategy that we can do and we're talking about immigration, right? What's the strategy that we can do in our classrooms to promote a healthy understanding, to promote unity and nurture and just togetherness? I created that word. I'm not sure togetherness is a word, but what can we do to promote that? Let's talk about it. Nancy, I love this. Nancy says, I try to bring in real life examples and stories. I have hundreds of biographies on their level that show positive examples. I love that, Nancy. Pam, do an activity that celebrates where their families came from to show that most of us came from other countries. I love that. That is so true. I will tell you, I've been in a room where I'm thinking I'm the only minority in there because my skin color was different. And there were different, minorities and cultural contexts that were going on all over the place. And I had no clue. But you really going into a deeper study about that. That's great. Guest speakers. Liza, I love that. Bringing in guest speakers. I like to bring in diverse guest speakers who have gone through different things, who can come, into our classrooms and really help to educate and give us a different understanding. And for some of the kids, it may be really, really different, especially if they are hearing different things at home. I love it. I love it. I'll tell you, in children's ministry, we had, and this was my wake-up call, that our kids are hearing a lot at home and that they're picking up those stereotypes. So I am a big time sneakerhead when it comes to reaching kids. Like I wear all types of cool sneakers and try to wear the cool clothes and just everything, Nike hoodies. And I remember we had one boy in our ministry who I absolutely still adore to this day. And he comes up to me and he says, Miss Esther, I love the way you dress. You dress so cool. And he says, I'm not allowed to dress that way. He said, because my dad would never let me wear Nike because Nike is un-American. And he goes into this whole, I'm like, oh my goodness, you're such a little boy talking about these controversial issues. But really, he was getting it from his parents. It wasn't anything that he was really sat down, and talked to about, and this is why it's so important that we talk about these things. Love it. I love it. I love it. I will throw it back off to you, Melissa.
Awesome. Wow. That was just a little light conversation. I love how you presented that tonight. Wow. Just a little speechless right now. That was a lot. As I said, we're about to have the wedding of Q and U, and that could go a lot of places. So I was so excited to have this tonight so I can make sure I am handling all of that appropriately. So I'm going to put in the chat box today our evaluation. And if you need a professional development certificate for tonight, that will be there too. We're always trying to improve and get better. So please make sure you fill out that evaluation. I do want to let you guys know that this will conclude our webinar this evening. I want to thank you guys so much for joining us. If there are any more questions, Esther and I will be on for just a little bit longer to make sure that we answer those. But again, thank you all for tackling this topic with us tonight. And we have somebody coming in.
People coming in.
So thank you so much.
Catherine has just come in just in time for questions.
Just
so
in
Catherine,
time.
if you have a question, just go ahead and go for it.
She may have gotten kicked out. I'm not sure. We've had so many great names tonight.
It is, and I know you guys, it can be very uncomfortable talking about controversial topics. And I know we come, to webinars. There's a lot of times I go to conferences and I'm like, tell me exactly how to do it and how to fix the world right now. I mean, that's, what we want. Understand that every situation is going to be different. I think if anything to leave you with is make sure that you're partnering with other leaders. Make sure that you're partnering with parents as much as possible when it comes to controversial topics. We are all in this together. Don't try to tackle something on your own. We've talked tonight about doing the homework, engaging with kids in age appropriate ways and coming up with a strategy. Don't try to come up with a strategy by yourself. There are mentors and coaches and leaders in our midst, parents who care about these topics as well. So make sure that you're doing everything that you can to partner.
Pam said it very well. Thank you, Esther, for helping us understand how loud our silence can be to students and how it can be communicated in an unintended way. Love that. So true.
Thank you, guys. It says, thank you. Thank you. I'm reading the chat box. I love chat boxes. Thank you guys for hanging out with me this evening.
Esther, thanks so much for being with us. I'm just delighted you could share from your vast background and knowledge. When we designed this workshop for tonight, I knew you were the right speaker for this, and you've just done a phenomenal job for us. It's been amazing, and you've really given us food for thought, just to think about how sometimes when we're trying to tippy-toe around something and we're trying not to bring it up, we're trying to kind of mask it, we're probably actually doing more damage than if we just went ahead and, like you say, addressed it with minimal amount of detail and depending on the child's age and all. But I just think so many times I don't know how to say something, or I don't know what to say.
Yeah.
And I think you've given us some really good food for thought that, do that homework, prepare what we need to say, and be informed, not just on our opinions, but really be informed. And I think that's hugely important.
It is. I'll tell you guys too, even, in the season of racial unrest, that we're still kind of living it seems like is occurring all the time. One of the things that I did, I forced myself, and I mentioned this earlier, I forced myself to try to understand every different perspective, and really try to put on glasses of people who don't look like you, people who may have different lifestyles than you. Try to put on their glasses and try to gain an understanding of where they are coming from. I mean, I even as a Black woman, I remember we watched a documentary on the KKK, and it was so fascinating. I just wanted to understand, from the perspective, of course, that's not something I agree with, but I wanted to understand what kind of thinking, what's in the mind and the heart of someone, a part of an organization like that. And I'll tell you, it really took me aback as I watched the documentary, my husband and I, and we just discovered, man, they are looking for a community to be engaged with. And this is like a club, for some of them, they didn't even realize, the history, of the KKK. So it was, sometimes it's hard. Sometimes we have to see past our own disturbances and go past ourselves and be willing to really just try to gain a perspective of what someone else who's different, how they may think.
Yeah, well said. Yeah, I agree. Wow, you got my brain going in so many different directions right now. I love this. And I love so many comments in the chat are talking about how important it is for teachers to address this, because we do, try to skirt around things and not get too controversial, sort of stay in the middle. I know Dr. Seuss recently was a big one that as a librarian, I had to really take to heart and do a little bit more with. Then I want to just say, no, I don't believe in censorship. But this is really exciting conversation. Pam, excellent choice on your presenter tonight. We really have enjoyed being with you tonight, Esther. Thank you so much. Anyone in the chat have any other questions? I know we still got 13 people hanging out, listening, not wanting to miss 1 minute of this. I love it.
You tell you, Dr. Seuss, I love all Dr. Seuss books. So for me, and some of the books on the list, I'm like, man, I have these books, so you're so right. And I think it's important to share with kids, the why, some people think like this, some people think like this, and to help them to really gather, information and we lead them in a way that's healthy. I think that is super important to make sure, well, some people don't like these books because they believe it does this, even though I'm like, it's a great story.
That's right. I know. Our job is to educate all areas, not just the fun, easy stuff.
Because they're going to pick up on one or the other. They're going to, if we don't talk about it, they're going to grab hold of I'm going to choose to think like this, and anyone who thinks like this, then this is wrong. And we definitely want to make sure, that our kids are open minded. We don't want them to just be closed minded to people who look like them or people who talk like them or act like them. This is how we change the world. We come together. We are able to operate and function together in the midst of our differences. So just helping kids to celebrate that and to embrace that and how beautiful that is.
So I'm glad Pam's here. This is a good time to throw out this question. Will the slides be available? Will we be giving access to the PowerPoint also, or just the recording of the video tonight? I know, Susan, you'll have the recording tonight.
Definitely have the recording, and if Esther doesn't mind us sharing the PowerPoint slides, then we will do that. But we will need to discuss that with Esther first, because that is intellectual property, and we wouldn't want to do anything violation of that intellectual property there. But we'll let you know about that, Susan. Thank you. Definitely share the video with you.
So you should be getting access to the video in a couple of days. Feel free to share that with others.
Absolutely.
This is a great, as Esther was saying, getting your community together in one voice, talking about this as adults before you have to talk about it with kids is a great idea. So sharing this webinar would be a good option to get that conversation started.
Yeah, we don't want any parents meeting us on the playground.
Why'd you say that?
Thank you, Melissa, for hosting again tonight. You are fabulous. Thank you, Esther.
awesome.
What a wonderful evening. Thank you so much for sharing with us. Absolutely fantastic. I
Had a
appreciate you
great
both.
time with you all this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you, Everett. So we're going to go ahead and shut it down. I think it's just all affirmations. What a great job you did, Esther. Not too many questions, but we're going to go ahead and close it out for this evening. We do have another webinar on Thursday. We hope that you get to join us with or stay tuned for all of the great webinars. I love this topic. And thank you again, Esther and Pam and everyone for joining us tonight. Have a lovely evening.